All right, so the next step here in the process is going to be to actually start building this article out using the notes that we've already created in the graph. And this is where Roam gets really, really powerful. And if you've taken the time up until this point to write all of the notes in your own words, then you'll see that how Roam really has the power here to kind of supercharge your writing process, because it's almost like building with Legos at this point. So you're going to watch how I build out this article here. I'm going to go through, again, we're working on a section here about DigiCache in particular, and I've got over here in the main window all of the linked references to DigiCache throughout my graph. So what I want to do for each one of these major technologies that I'm going to highlight in this blog post is drop in a couple pieces of information. The first one I want to drop in here about DigiCache is this general block here that just describes when it was invented and by whom and sort of for what main reasons. So I'm going to option drag that over to drop that in as a block reference. And let's do the same thing for just a couple more facts here that I wanted to include. This idea here is interesting for each one of these major technologies that I'm going to write about in this blog post. I want to include what some of the main innovations were that they brought into the space. And this is the idea that DigiCache was the first to introduce what are known as blind signatures. So I'll go ahead and drop that in there. One of the other facts that I wanted to include was this one down here about DigiCache using collateralized backing. So I'll pull that over. And then finally, I just wanted to drop in this block up here about DigiCache eventually going bankrupt. So I'll drag that one over as well. So now I've got 4 blocks that I've moved over. Again, all of these are written in my own words. So theoretically, I could go ahead and publish a blog post just like this without plagiarizing. But a couple of things, obviously, that we need to clean up. Number one, we've got these page references and things like that in here. Those are going to get a little bit messy when you go to export to whatever final word editor or web publishing platform that you're going to be using. And so number one, we want to get rid of those. And then number two, the wording of these is obviously not written to flow together. So anytime you're writing a blog post, the fact that you've got all of these notes written in your own words is great, but you're going to want to do some smoothing over to make the wording fit in with exactly the style and the flow of the blog post. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is use a function known as replace with. And if you just click on one of these blocks anywhere and you hover up here to this menu that says replace with, you'll see a number of options pop up. We have already talked about block embeds. We talked about that earlier in the course. The two that I want to focus on right now are text and alias. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'll click on this text one. And what I want to show you is that what that does is it converts the block into text. So now what I'm able to do is go ahead and edit the wording in this block and make it flow with the blog post more smoothly. So this would accomplish the goal of, me wanting to come in here and like delete these brackets, for example, without altering the original block where this came from, which you can see over here. The problem with doing it this way is that it doesn't preserve the link. It doesn't preserve the connection between this block and this one. So there's no longer a logical link in Roam that shows you where this block is referenced. So what I'm going to do is hit Command Z here a couple of times. I'll drop those brackets back in, and then I'll hit it one more time, and that's going to take me back to where this is a block reference. And what I want to show you is the one that I like to use when I'm working like this, which is replace with text and alias. So you'll see if I click on that, what this does is it does the same exact thing where it unreferences the text here. So I can go ahead and, make changes as needed here in the block without altering the original block. But the very cool thing that this text and alias does is you'll see here this markdown at the end. And what that does is preserves the link. So if I click out of that block somewhere, you'll notice I can hover over this and it now has a link to that original block. You can also see the link over here. So you can now see where that block is referenced throughout the graph. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for a couple more of these sections here of the blog post, but you get the core idea. And again, to recap, what we're doing is just pulling over these blocks that are written throughout our graph and sort of building them together like knowledge Legos here to build out our blog post.